So we do have time for some questions. We have to be out of here at 10:30. It's 9:30, so maybe we'll have questions until someone crazy grabs the microphone. And or maybe we'll have questions for half an hour, something like that. And so if anybody has any questions, then there's a microphone there, and there's a microphone there. And I'll try to answer them to the best that I can, best of my ability. So let's start.
Okay, so you talked about the idea of when you're confronting something that you fear, you face it head on and you destroy it. But then you said that the idea is when you're confronting something, you make the world out of it. And I was wondering if you could just, generally expound on what that means.
You make your marriage out of the arguments.
Okay.
You know, you have arguments with your wife, you have arguments with your children. That's that chaotic state because no one's been able to formulate a habitable order from that domain of controversy and confusion. And then through dialogue, you erect a structure that's a house that you can both live in. And so that's the idea of making the world out of that chaos. And it's frightening because, you know, if you really and this is why people often avoid having disputes with people they love, because it's frightening, right? You find out what the person's like and you find out what you're like. It's like, God, who wants to do that? Nobody. And so, you know, your heart rate goes up and it's confrontation and conflict. And that's because you're encountering that domain that hasn't been properly mapped or configured. And so, and you're doing that with your predator detection systems, essentially. And so that chaos that threatens the stability, say, of the marriage is equivalent to, well, it's equivalent to the serpent in the tree. That's one form of equivalence. And then by dialogue, through dialogue and negotiation, you formulate the problem. What exactly is going on here? Where exactly are we? What exactly is the problem? And so you keep talking until you reach a consensus about that, one that you can live with, one that you can act out. Right? And then maybe you come up with a solution to the problem and you've established peace again. And peace, that's the house that you can both live in. And that's the chaos. That's the chaos that people can fall into all the time and often do. And it's the chaos that makes a marriage wash up on the shores and transform into, like, you know, 15-year divorce court. Very horrible thing. So that's the idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Peterson. Thank you so much for the talk, and thanks for your teachings. It's really helped me a lot. I had an experience in grad school, 2 English degrees, and the way you described the humanities in my experience helped me understand my experience back then. So thank you. So
That's too bad. That's too bad that happens to be the case. Really, like that, you know, it's really not good. But
you don't have to tell me that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but, you know, I survived, and I learned a lot. And, you know, I'm not, you know, ungrateful for my experience. I've learned a lot. But you said something, you described the Bible, the collection of stories in the Bible, in an interesting way, and I wonder if it was on purpose. You described it as created by an assembly of stories created by many people over time that's hyperlinked into itself. And it sounds a lot like how a description of like the internet and like how that works.
Yeah, well, it's not accidental. I mean, because the internet's also a collective endeavor. God only knows what personality it's going to manifest, you know, but it's going to manifest some personality because it's learning to understand us very, very rapidly. So I think there's no reason not to think about it as a precursor. I mean, the distance between the Bible and the internet is a lot less than the distance between a chimpanzee and a human being. So, you know, and the difference between a book and the internet is, it's in some sense, it's a matter of degree rather than kind. So
if the internet is going to, you know, manifest a personality one day, and then that personality gets embodied, what would separate? It sounds like you're talking about consciousness.
I can't speculate, you know, because God only knows what's going to happen in the next 20 years. I certainly don't. And so I don't know what the preconditions are for consciousness. I have no idea, and I don't think anybody knows. So I guess we're going to find out. So, yep. Yep.
Hey, Dr. Peterson. I'm curious about the connection between aesthetic beauty and religious experience. I think you've hinted at it once or twice over the course of this lecture. Is it possible for something that's incredibly beautiful to evoke a religious or mystical experience, or something kind of in the same ballpark?
I think that's what they're for,
yeah,
in some
actually,
sense. You know, I mean, if you look at the
yeah.
structure of like a Renaissance cathedral, you know, there's
That's
just
literally what I was just gonna. That was
Right,
the
right.
That was my tag on. I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt. My tag on to that question. The next part was, is that why we have cathedrals built like as spectacular buildings as opposed to maybe a little box or something?
right. Well, it's if you're going to house the ultimate ideal, you build something beautiful, right? To represent its dwelling place, and it should be beautiful. And this is something that people do not take seriously. And this is especially something we don't take seriously in Canada. I mean, you think about all the hundreds of millions of dollars that were invested into beauty in Europe. I mean, spectacular, excessive investment in beauty that's paid back. God only knows how many multiples of times. People make pilgrimages to Europe constantly because it's so beautiful that it staggers you. Beauty is so valuable, and we're so afraid of it. And I think we're afraid of it because it's a pathway. It's not the only pathway to the divine. I mean, there's pathways to the divine. Love is one of them, I suppose. But beauty, especially for people who have an affinity for beauty, it's like music. It's one of those things that you can't argue against, right? You can't even understand. It just hits you. And it shows you, well, it shows you the ideal. That's one way of thinking about it. But it also shows you, I think, it's like a vision of the potential future. It's something like that as well, that if we just got our act together and beautified things, that's the place that we can inhabit, and that would ennoble us. And that's why this Jerusalem, the heavenly city, is paved with gemstones. You know, they're crystalline, they emit light, and yeah, it's the proper dwelling place for an enlightened consciousness. Beauty is the proper dwelling place for an enlightened consciousness. And we ignore it at our spiritual and economic peril. It's obvious that beauty, there's almost nothing more valuable than beauty. Economically, practically, right? So, yeah. Why that is, I mean, I don't, it's very, who knows? You know, I mean, why we experience gemstones, for example, is beautiful. It's very mysterious, but there are deep reasons for it. So, yeah.
Thank you for watching this video. This is the Archangel 911. If you enjoyed what you were watching, please click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. Have a nice day.